Hi, and welcome to the Scientist Sage Sangha. I'm Nancy Anderson Dolan, and tonight we are talking about NIKSEN. This is a concept that I feel a little bit fraudulent promoting because I'm really bad at it. And so, but it's something that I think my body and brain would really appreciate, not to mention my family. And this has been around for a little while. There's been a lot of leaning towards it. Like, how do you get through what's going on in the world right now in the last few years? Like, since the pandemic, everybody's anxiety and stress has gone up and up and up. And there's been so much burnout. And particularly in societies where it's not okay to do nothing. And luckily, Dutch society is not like that. They have this concept of NIKSEN that is actually, this is something you should be doing. You should be doing nothing. And it's like, you know, I don't know how that would work for me. But they do have a couple of caveats that you don't have to just sit there glassy-eyed and not move. If you're doing something that is kind of automatic, like for some people, it might be doing a craft like painting or crocheting, or some people swimming or running might give them that NIKSEN feeling, just spacing out, not having to concentrate, getting into the zone. And just hanging out, though, just hanging out without a plan, without a reason, without a purpose, that is like painful to me. So I've been practicing it in the last little bit. And I've been a little busy, so it's hard to fit my doing nothing in. But I worked on it. And you're not even supposed to work on it. So, I'm not sure that I'm that ahead on it for you. But this isn't, I want to be really clear that this isn't a new twist about mindfulness, because mindfulness takes energy to be present, to recognize what's going on around you and that sort of thing, and stay focused on going down a rabbit hole, things like that. So it's not this. It literally is just hanging out and sort of floating. And if you've ever floated in the ocean where you get some nice waves going back and forth and you're just looking up at the sky, it's that kind of feeling we're shooting for. And people do it in different ways. They might be, laying on their couch, listening to some music. But the big thing is not having the productivity process going. You just park it somewhere. And this is interesting because most people, when they start to do this, and I run into a lot of it in the work that I do as a counselor, because it's really hard for people to sit still and not do something and not plan something to do if they're not doing something at the moment, and then they start doing that, right? So it's really interesting to explore this, especially in our culture, because our culture has been so achievement and activity oriented, and people have worn the badge of busyness that as something to be looked up to. I don't know if I can fit you in, let me check my book, that sort of thing. And I really wanted to try this out for a few weeks and see what it was like. I got a book from the library that just popped up that I might be interested in, and I was. And so I thought, there are some cultures that promote it. There are cultures that move at a different pace. There are cultures that think that this is a good idea, but they never really get around to it. But as modern life is sort of, wearing people down, they are like, how can I feel better? And of course, I'm a sort of research driven person. So the research on it's quite interesting, because what they found is that as people did nothing more often, they actually came up with ideas easier, solutions to issues they had going on, not because they were sitting down thinking about them. In fact, they were sitting down not thinking about them, just doing nothing. It's almost like the brain had to have a little time off, or just got to run around in a back room that wasn't overseen by the conscious mind. And they reported being happy. And so this is interesting. And the other research that was really promoting it was all sorts of health things, health of both mind and body. And people's immune responses were better if they actually spent time doing nothing. In our society, a lot of people have immune diseases where their immune systems are attacking something that isn't even there. And so they're getting excess responses. And so this idea that doing nothing might help that as well was really interesting to me. Now, like I say, this is the tricky part, because if you schedule it in, then you're planning on doing something. So got to figure this out. But there's moments, and I went through and I was looking for like, okay, how is the way to do this? But there are a lot of people doing nothing about doing nothing. And so this is really interesting what they're doing. They found that if they just took a moment between activities, that was useful for them. They would take a moment and they would go, oh, this is just the breath in between. Let me just sit here for a minute. Oh, interesting. What's happening between the things that I'm doing? Oh, and that's how a lot of people started, just taking 5 minutes here, 2 minutes there, and taking time when they were like riding on a bus or, waiting for someone to just not try and get one more phone call in, not pick up the phone and see what happened in politics today, but just sat. And sometimes they smelled something and sometimes they saw something. So they weren't pushing to grab life. They were just letting it flow towards them. And that really is the essence of the word NIKSEN. It's not just like sit there and do nothing in a stiff position. It really is letting life flow in, not trying to capture it. So I think this might be a really useful thing. But again, it is a little bit tricky because we're in a culture that really prioritizes sort of rushing around and organizing everything so we can have it flow in a particular way that will go in our favor. So we don't know what's going to happen when we do nothing. And too many people literally are afraid of doing nothing. And when I ask people to take a little time and just sit, they often report being really anxious in their bodies. So there's a huge piece of the body restlessness that needs to be addressed if people are going to do nothing. And again, this short little time, notice like, oh, it takes me about 48 seconds to get uncomfortable doing nothing. Or it takes me, about 10 minutes to get uncomfortable doing that. And then your brain goes, well, why should I do nothing? I have so many things that I need to do. I will get further behind if I do nothing. And I spoke to a young person today, and they quoted what so many young people are telling me, but I'm so far behind. I said, okay. So the doing nothing actually just brings you to the moment, because we're not really behind our head. These are artificial things because I can't be 10 years older than I am right now. And I can't be 10 years younger than I am right now. I can just be me right now. That's all that really is available to me. And so this idea of losing something when we're doing nothing is one of the big mental blocks to it. That we actually gain something is a sales job we have to do with ourselves. So think about that in your own personal idea about it, because it can be really challenging. The idea of our thoughts jumping in. And what happens actually when people are not practiced before they try and take a little longer do nothing time, what happens is they actually start to ruminate and worry about things, because we have such a negativity bias in our brains that is particularly well lit up right now by a lot of the difficulties that have happened in the last few years. So taking it a little bit at a time, carving out what you can, noticing when the wave of rumination sort of comes in and captures your brain and takes it away from doing nothing. And then, oh, okay, that's where it is right now. And going off and doing whatever, is the next thing that feels right to be doing. That's a new thing for a lot of people, but it really is part of the NIKSEN break, that do nothing break, because we have some other ideas that might come in. We might have a sudden oh-ho about something, I often have those moments when I lose something and I get so discouraged from looking for it that I can't find it, that I sit down and I just stop running around. And I sit there for a few minutes and some idea sort of floats through my head. And often it's right. It's where the thing is, because I've just been sitting doing nothing, not looking for it, not trying to figure out where it is, but doing nothing, just making space for the next moment of life to flow in. So this idea is very interesting. It's difficult to work with the restlessness that we get when we're trying to do nothing. And so be very gentle, be very present to what's going on. But I encourage you to try it with some intention and some persistence. You can create these new patterns in your body. A lot of people have things like chronic fatigue and that sort of thing. But part of that is this always on kind of lifestyle. And other things come up in our bodies because we're on them. But when we're just opening up instead of filling up, we have different things, and what we value shows up differently. Because I am somebody who gets a nice little dopamine hit of a checked off list. And so my doing things, like do nothing. I don't even get to put doing nothing on the list to check off, really. But that's the idea, is we just move towards it gently. And so if we're just encouraging our minds to open to some positive possibilities of how can I, even enjoy doing nothing. Maybe I'm going to lay down with my eyes covered, take and actually plan, this is a little break. Maybe I'm going to be in nature. Some people, like I said, walking can do it. Some people doing a breathing practice. But again, if I do a breathing practice and that's all I do during that time, that's not the same thing as doing nothing. If I take a couple of deep breaths and then relax and just let my breath come and go as it will, that's doing nothing. So all of these things, everybody will have their own really unique way of doing nothing. And I really encourage people to find out what puts you in that zone. And I would love to hear about it. If you want to send emails to scientistsage@gmail.com about your adventures in nothingness. And whatever you do, the judgment of it isn't what it is. The feeling of it is what you're looking for. That feeling of, oh, be a little more relaxed, a little more with the flow, a little more open, a little less driven. So you too could become a NIKSENeer. That's the nickname for it. And I just love that word. So I think that's one of the things that made me persist with this, doing nothing, because I like that. I want to be called an adventurer NIKSENeer. So we're going to wind this down and we're going to do a little meditation on doing nothing. And this is sort of like a dry run, a practice run. So you can pay attention to how you can do nothing. Okay. So for the people with me, just get yourselves comfortable, and the people listening as well. But feel free to go off screen if you're on screen. And really just notice what your body needs. Yeah. Sometimes our bodies stop us from doing nothing because we're uncomfortable. I'm a big believer of when you do any kind of meditation, make sure, first of all, that your body is comfortable. And then you can lean back, relax, imagine just shutting your eyes and just shutting the world out for a few minutes. And then just take a breath in, breath out. And then notice, you may notice that your body goes, oh, thank goodness. Or your body might go, oh no, I need to go and do this. I'm wasting my time sitting here listening to this. I have things I have to do. I'll make a list while we're doing this. We have all sorts of sneaky things in our brains that compete to keep us from nothingness. If you're really besieged by lots of thoughts, just take a moment with them and slow them down, like you would slow down the speed on a record player or on a YouTube feedback loop. Just, oh, yeah, gotta walk the dogs. Yeah, yeah. Oh, probably gotta put the garbage out too. Yeah. Oh, and phone Martha. Just notice it. Okay. This is the mindfulness back door to nothingness. And then literally notice. Ah, not much going on. And you might observe just by the flow of things. Ah, my cheek is cold. Or the dog's heavy where they're laying on me. Oh, I have a nice warm feeling in my heart. Or isn't the sunset pretty? This is just life flowing by. And it's not the urge to observe everything that goes by. It's just letting everything go by. Okay, that was funny. Even a sneeze or a cough or a twitch, that's all included in them. Anything that you're not planning. And okay, I'm going to wrap this up for the people watching the video when it's out, and for the people on with me live, we'll come to a discussion as a group in a moment. But for the people watching later, thank you so much. We're here almost every Tuesday night, and replays of all the Sanghas are available on Scientist Sage YouTube channel. And if you want to comment, donate to this project, want to suggest something we might talk about, a special word that you're fond of, you can email that to scientistsage@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining us. I am with you. You are with me. Blessed be. Good night.